Hello, and welcome to the month of Spooky 2021. Scary stories are a part of life. We've been telling them since the dawn of man over campfires, radio broadcasts, television, and these days, social media. They remind us of our own mortality, get our adrenaline going, and send chills through our bodies that, well, we just can't explain. During this month, you can expect the unexpected, hear the unbelievable, and witness stories that will stretch your imagination. Why? Because that is what we do here at Ron's Amazing Stories. So settle in for the spooky and be prepared to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by the word classic. Stick to the classics and you can never go wrong. That is what we do here at Ron's Amazing Stories.
That and you pull it off so well.
We do that, don't we?
Hello, Andy. Just found out you were traveling with me.
What do you want, Thomas? This is a private compartment.
Now, is that the way to greet your ex-partner?
Beat it, you crook. I'm through with your double dealing.
Yeah, what about that dough you owe me from the last take?
You've got a head like an elephant. Blow, brother. The air's getting bad in here.
Yeah? Now let me open the window then. I'll clear it out.
Hey, are you crazy? You'll blow us out of here.
Okay, Andy. Here you go.
Let go of me, you...
Good fellow, Andy. Just a few seconds, we'll be in the tunnel where it's nice and dark. And then I'll give you all the fresh air you want. Just a minute now, and we'll be there. Okay. There you go.
Nothing like this ever happened on this railroad during my time, Mr. Thomas. Can't tell you how sorry I am about your friend.
That's all right, conductor. Not the fault of the railroad. Can't stop a suicide.
Well, what makes you think it was a suicide? He might have fallen out of the window when he tried to open it.
Yeah, that's possible, sure, but he looked pretty down the mouth when I left him to grab a smoke in the lounge car.
Well, why didn't you smoke in the compartment? That's the advantage of having one these times.
Andy, my friend was a little touchy about the air in there, so I came out.
What happened after you went out for a smoke?
Well, I got into a business conversation with a few of the gentlemen in the lounge, but after a while, I figured I'd better be getting back to the compartment to see how Andy was getting along. As I came into the aisle next to the drawing room cars, we came into the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that Andy's room was only 3 doors away, so I felt my way along in the dark to his door. When I opened it, I felt a sudden rush of air in the room. I closed the door and tried to find the light switch, but I couldn't.
The train was still in the tunnel?
Yeah. I lit a match and saw that the window of the train was wide open. Andy's coat and hat was on the seat and his bag was on the rack. But he was gone.
I see. Well, that'll be sufficient, Mr. Thomas. I have enough for my report.
Okay. If you need me, I'll be in my compartment.
And please stay there, Mr. Thomas. For when we reach our next stop, I'm turning you over to the police for murder.
By what damaging slip in his story did Johnny Thomas prove to the conductor that he was the murderer of his former partner? In just a moment, we'll know. But first...
Wow, that was one of the more violent deaths we've had.
True, but also one of the best portrayed. It gave me the chills.
Are you sure it wasn't just the open window? That was quite the air blast.
Do I need to point out, once again, that these are just stories?
Are you inferring that I have lost my grip on reality?
Not at all, my good man. I doubt you had such a grip in the first place.
I'm not so sure I know how to take that one.
And now, back to our story.
Are you crazy? What do you mean I murdered Andy? Prove it.
Easily. You said that when you opened the door to your friend's compartment, you felt a sudden rush of air in the room. That was true. But you then told me that you lit a match and that it stayed lit while you had time to notice several details in the compartment. And that's where your story fell apart, Mr. Thomas. No match would stay lit for more than a split second in the face of that rush of air sweeping in from the open window in the tunnel.
And I thought I had an airtight alibi.
That was your mistake. There was too much air.
I have to say, there never really was any kind of mystery to solve here.
Agreed on that. But I am going to repeat my enthusiasm for the performance. It was tour de force.
Really?
I could actually feel the air rushing from my lungs.
Well, okay then.
What's that you say?
Hello and welcome to the podcast, and week 2 of the month of Spooky 2021. Today is going to be a different kind of show, but I think you're in for some fun.
What? What makes you say that?
Well, Slyvia Shults is here, and she isn't going to be telling us any ghost stories.
I like stories about piñatas.
Okay. No stories about piñatas, but we will listen to the OTR classic, The Thing on the Fourble Board. Quite terrifying.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm so very glad that you agree, because you never know what will happen next on Ron's Amazing Stories. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to? Fractured Spirits, Haunting at the Peoria State Hospital, narrated by Leanne Howlett. Now you might be wondering why I didn't tell you who authored this. Well, that's because the book was written by our very own Slyvia Shults. This is her third book that has been turned into an audiobook, and it just might be the best. During the first half of the 20th century, the Peoria State Hospital was the premier mental health facility of its day. Dr. George Zeller created a model for the care of the mentally ill. Today, there are only a few buildings left at the hospital. Some of them are still in use. Others are inhabited only by ghosts. Our guide to these ghosts and the history that they represent is Slyvia Shults. Slyvia, what can you tell us about this book?
Well, Ron, I was really excited to write this book. It came about because I got curious. I was hearing stories about this abandoned mental asylum, so I started investigating it and started collecting people's ghost stories about it. But the neat thing about this hospital is that the history and the compassion with which these patients were treated is just as fascinating as the ghost stories. So learning about the legacy of care that came out of this hospital for the treatment of the mentally ill was just as special to me as hearing all those wonderful ghost stories.
How cool is it that 3 of your books have been made into Audible books?
Oh, I am so very grateful for this. I listen to a lot of books on CD when I'm driving places, and they just make the hours fly and make the miles pass like nothing. So it's a real treat to have somebody reading a book to you. I grew up with my father reading to us kids too, so I'm just so very grateful that my books are being read to people in this way.
I guess my last question about this is, what can we expect from this book? Is it all just history, or what is the quintessential thing that we should take away from Fractured Spirits?
The quintessential thing you need to remember is that this was a place like no other. The ghosts are fascinating, yes, and the reason they are still there is because they received such excellent care. They want to spend their afterlife there. This was a place of compassion, and that is what I really wanted to make people realize. This isn't a scary place. This isn't a place where the patients were abused and resulted in hauntings because of that. This resulted in hauntings because of the family nature of the Peoria State Hospital.
Well, Sylvia, we have a clip from the book, and it comes from the chapter titled The Pollock Hospital. Now, we've talked about that one many times. It tells the story of your friend David and his encounter with a spirit. But before I play this clip, you say that David is a sensitive in this story, and me personally, I'm not 100% sure what that means. Can you give us a quick definition?
Of course. There are sensitives, and then there are psychic mediums, and the two is sort of the person's own interpretation of what they experience. A sensitive will be aware of different energies, the energies of people that have passed on, because that's all a ghost is, really, is life energy left over. And a medium is someone who can pick up on that energy enough to be able to communicate with the spirit of the person that has passed on. We have mediums that are clairvoyant. They can see dead people. They clairaudient. They can hear them. Clairsentient. They can understand what they're saying just in their minds. A sensitive usually won't claim that much of a connection. A sensitive will be aware of that energy, but they may not be able to communicate as well as a psychic medium.
All right, well, let's play the clip.
When Dark Continents Publishing launched the first Baker's Dozen of books in its product line, the president of the company decided to do some good. I've known David M. Youngquist for several years, and he loves the written word with a clear, undeniable passion. At his suggestion, the company decided to donate one copy of each book in its catalog to 2 area libraries. One, up in David's neck of the woods, was the tiny Sheffield Library. Dark Continent's donation of 13 books covered 3/4 of their book purchasing for the year. The other library chosen to receive a full complement of books was the library I work for, Fond du Lac District Library in East Peoria. Our director was thrilled with the donation and called the local paper in to take pictures. David drove down from Princeton with a back seat full of books. Since it was a drive of an hour and a half for him, he asked me to suggest other area libraries for him to visit that morning. The plan was for David to make Fond du Lac his first stop, donate the books, then visit a few more libraries. Then he'd drive back to East Peoria, meet me for lunch, then drive home. I gave him detailed directions, sending him from East Peoria to Pekin, then across the river to Alpha Park Library in Bartonville. Now, David's a sensitive. As I handed him the sheet of directions, I said, "Okay, now after you cross the river and go north into Bartonville, you're going to turn left at the first stoplight and go up a hill. At the top of the hill, you're going to pass a great big stone building on your right. Put your guards up. I'm not kidding about this." Halfway through my morning, I got a text message from David. "Was there a TB ward at this hospital you keep telling me about?" "Yep. It was called the Pollock Hospital." "Thought so. I picked up a hitchhiker." Later, over lunch, David told me the whole story. He had been driving up Pfeiffer Road and was just passing the Bowen when he felt a heavy tightness in his chest. Then he became aware of someone sitting in the passenger seat of his truck. It was a lanky guy dressed in working man's clothes. You know how you can tell an old farmer by his hands? Their hands are big, calloused, with swollen knuckles from a lifetime of work. I could tell this had been a big guy, but he'd gotten sick later in life. David said, hello there. My name's David. What's yours? George, came the reply. What's the problem, George? I've got TB. Given the sympathetic tightness in his chest, David had been expecting that answer. When did you die? This question didn't get an answer. The shade in David's passenger seat was silent. David figured that either George didn't know he was dead, or he didn't feel like discussing it. He tried another question. You're not coming home with me, are you? No, this is my home. So, why are you in my car? An ethereal shrug. I don't get out much. David gave a mental snort. Wait, what? You're an incorporeal being. What do you mean you don't get out much? But David's a nice guy, and he didn't object to George riding along with him. The Alpha Park Library is still technically on the grounds of the old asylum, so George wasn't going off of the grounds without a pass or anything like that. David did his library visit, although he told me he felt a little funny about it. As he talked with the librarian, he kept casting surreptitious glances over his shoulder, trying to make sure George didn't wander too far away. He didn't want to leave the guy behind. After leaving the library, David and George rode all the way back down Pfeiffer Road together. At the bottom of the hill, George said, Well, thanks for putting up with me. Then he vanished from the passenger seat. He was very cordial, David said. He was one of the most pleasant, well-behaved spirits I've ever encountered.
Well, fractured spirits haunting at the Peoria State Hospital, Sylvia brings the passion for the paranormal investigation to her adventures at this haunted hotspot. The spirits come to life once more as she explores their former home. A true ghost story over 100 years in the making. Fractured Spirits is a narrative of nonfiction at its finest. And you can have this book today. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This includes free access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is updated monthly with new titles. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can get Fractured Spirit today. Thank you, Audible, and Sylvia, thank you.
Oh, Ron, it was my pleasure.
Our featured story has got to be the most requested, most listened to, and what happens to be my most favorite horror story from the golden age of radio. And based on your comments over the years, yours too. The Thing on the Fourble Board is the most highly regarded episode of the OTR series, Quiet Please. This story has both fans in the OTR and experts labeling it one of the best horror programs ever broadcast. Richard J. Hand of the University of Glamorgan notes, The Thing on the Fourble Board is not only cited as a fine example of radio horror, but also one of the best examples of radio drama as a whole. We have played this story every year during the month of Spooky, and this year we're going to do things just a little bit different. I am not going to listen to it alone, and neither are you, which is a good thing. Sylvia, are you ready for this?
Oh, yes, I am, Ron.
Well, tell me your experience with this story the first time you've heard it.
I don't think I could have picked a better setting in which to listen to The Thing on the Fourble Board for the very first time. I had read your glowing reviews of it, and the fact that it was a classic in the horror genre, and I had never read it. I had never heard it. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to listen to this recording. I'm going to listen to Ron's show. And I took a blanket out to my garden area and a thermos of hot, sweet, milky tea and a couple of pillows. And I lay the blanket down in the dark under the stars.
Big mistake.
And had my thermos of tea and a couple little plate of snacks. And I listened to it. And it freaked me out so bad.
It'll do that.
It was so creepy. And I adore horror fiction. I usually read it. I don't usually listen to it. But oh man, this story rocked my world. It was so good and it was so strange and so disturbing that I honestly, I don't think I could have picked a better setting.
Well, let me tell you this. This story has been doing that to people since 1948 when this was recorded. And so I'm not surprised that that's your reaction to it. I myself, the first time I heard it, was more or less thinking they could do this in the radio and get away with it and still terrify me. It was just that good. It is so well done. In places, it's mundane. In other places, absolutely terrifying. And in others, mystifying.
That's what I love about it so much, is it starts out so mundane. There's just this guy going about his life, and that's what makes the horror so horrible.
Yes. Well, Sylvia, the thing on the Fourble board begins in a secluded oil field and is narrated by the person that experiences it. It was first released on August 9th, 1948 on the show Quiet Please. Are you ready to hear it again, Sylvia?
Oh, I am so deliciously ready to hear this again, Ron.
All right. I would suggest that if you have the lights on, turn it off if you dare, and follow the instructions that the announcer is about to give you.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. Mutual Broadcasting System presents Quiet Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and which features Ernest Chappell.
Quiet Please for tonight is called The Thing on the Fourble Board. Me, I'm a roughneck. Well, I was a roughneck, 20 years ago. A little too old, too slow now. Besides, I got $1 now. I don't have to be a roughneck, you see. Married, got a nice home. Had to meet my wife. Hey, Mike. Her name's Maxine, but she likes to be called Mike. Mike! I guess she's busy out in the kitchen someplace. Besides, she doesn't hear very well. Shame, too. She's so pretty and everything. Well, you'll meet her. Sit down. I was saying I was a roughneck. Well, no, that doesn't mean exactly what you think it means. A roughneck is an oil field worker, specifically a guy in a drilling crew. Call them roughnecks like you call a section hand on the railroad a gandy dancer, a garage hand a grease monkey. Same time you work around a drilling crew for a while, you're going to be a roughneck in every sense of the word, boy. A derrick floor or a Fourble board is no place for a guy with a bow tie. Because when you have to fool around with drilling holes that go farther down the ground than it is from the top of Pike's Peak down to sea level, sure they do. The time I was a roughneck, we got this one well down to 7,313 feet. That was a record. But last May, Pure Oil brought one in out in the Natrona Valley in Wyoming at 14,309 feet. That, friend, is almost 3 miles. Quite a hole, that, huh? Sure, I don't think there's an oil man in the world that don't wonder one time or another what's down there, besides rock and oil and gas. Oil that's made out of trees that died 20 million years ago. Oil that's made out of dinosaur bones. Oil that's maybe made out of the flesh and blood of men, maybe, that beat each other to death with a stone axe, ate saber-toothed tiger for lunch. Yeah, you get to wondering. You look at the cores that come up from way down there, and sometimes the little shells, trilobites mostly, that was alive when Manhattan Island, where New York is, was under half a mile of ice. We found something once, me and Billy Grunwald, and something found us. I'll tell you about it. We were down to around 5,400 feet. We'd set casing. We began to get water, so we had to stop drilling and cement off. Well, you see, when water begins to seep in the hole, you pull your drill pipe, then you let down a cementing shoe inside the casing, and you plug up the bottom of the hole, casing and all, with quick hardening waterproof cement. Then when it's hard, you drill through the cement, go on down, and the cement outside the casing at the bottom keeps the water out. Well, we had the drill pipe all pulled and racked. The cement was setting, see, so we was shut down, waiting for it to harden. We'd been coring just before. Well, you see, a core drill is hollow, and as the bit digs down, it stuffs the drillings up inside it, so when you pull it out, you got a sample of the kind of stuff you're going through. And a geologist can tell a lot from that. So there's nobody around the rig except me that night. The rest of the crew's going into town. I was toasting some pork chops over the forge for my supper. I heard a car pulling up. Look out, it's Billy Grunwald, the geologist, and I give him a hello. Hi, Billy. Come and have a pork chop.
Hi, Porky. Where's everybody?
They all went to town. I'm the whole crew.
I had 3 blowouts between here and Oxnard.
Yeah, I wondered where you was. Ted said you'd be in here about 3.
Yeah, I would have been, except for my tough luck. Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, hungry?
Starved.
Yeah, I got 7 pork chops. And bread. And some coffee, kind of.
Swell. Hey, I got a bottle in the car.
We're going to have a banquet.
Hey, where's that core? That's what I came up here to look at.
Yeah, back there on the bench. Look at it after supper.
Hey.
What?
Didn't you say you were all alone here?
Uh-huh.
I thought I heard somebody talking.
I don't see anybody. Keep an eye on that pork chop. You won't have any supper.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Here, let me put the coffee on. Like so.
When'd you finish cementing?
This morning. Last tower only made about 10 feet of hole, so Ted shut down before we get flooded out of house and home.
Funny about that water.
How?
Oughtn't to be any at that level, according to my figuring.
Well, there is.
Is it salt?
Sure, right out of the bottom of the ocean.
That's funny. Well, maybe I'll be able to tell something from the core. Yeah, I hope so. The last core I looked at, I'd have sworn we were getting into shale.
Ain't seen none yet from the cuttings.
That's funny.
Here, your pork chop's done. There, take some bread.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, man.
Good, huh? Yeah, put on another. I had 2 already before you come.
Yeah, much obliged. Yeah, you never can tell what's down there. You get it all mapped and plotted out, all the strata. And all you know is what comes out of the hole.
Yeah, I'd like to go down there sometime if I was little enough.
Never get you down a hole.
Yeah, you'd fit. You're skinny.
I'll stay up here and look at the cores, Bud. Where is that one?
Behind you. Over there.
Oh. Well, I'll have a look at it.
Well, why don't you wait till you finish your supper?
I'm just going to look at it. Put on another pork chop for me.
Okay.
Well, I wish those screech owls would keep...
What's the matter?
Hey, wait a minute, Porky.
Well, why do you...
Listen.
What's eating you?
You know, I'd have sworn there's somebody up there on that Fourble board.
Ah, you're crazy. There's nobody up there.
Getting against those stands of drill pipe.
Ah, they're just rack crooked. One of them slipped. Come on back and eat your pork chop.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Only
what's you so jittery about, Billy? Come on, eat your sandwich. Here.
Yeah, well, thanks, Porky. I don't know. I'm just naturally that way, I guess. I'm always scared of the dark. Doggone it, I hate to be a baby, but I can't help it.
Scared of the dark? Honest?
Stupid, ain't it?
Oh, I don't know. Everybody's scared of something. Me? Spiders scare the tar out of me. Black widows. Oh. I know how you feel, Billy.
There another light over here?
Yeah. Here.
Ah. Oh. That's better. Hey, listen, Porky. Go out to the car and look in the left-hand door pocket and bring back that bottle, will you? That's what I need.
Okay, kid. Okay. So I picked up a flashlight, I turned around and went outside. I found the car, and I got the bottle. And the floor of the derrick was all lit up, and when I saw a beam of light suddenly flash up toward the Fourble board, I laughed. Billy Grunwald and his ideas. Sure, I looked up. There wasn't a darn thing up there, except the drill pipe racked against the fingerboard. Oh, this Fourble board. Well, you've seen oil derricks, or pictures of them? You know that little platform that runs around the outside of the derrick about halfway up? Well, that's the Fourble board. Well, you see, drill pipe comes in lengths, and you handle them with several lengths screwed together so as to save time getting them in and out of the hole. 2 lengths is a double, 3 is a triple, 4 is a Fourble. When you pull the pipe, you heist it up inside the derrick with a traveling block, which moves up and down from the crown block at the top of the derrick. Then when a Fourble of pipe is pulled out, it's held in the rotary table. You break the joint with tongs, like a great big Stilton wrench, you see. Snub a cable that's fastened to the handle over the cathead on the drawworks, and that breaks the joint. Then you hold the tongs on the pipe, give the rotary table a few turns to unscrew it. You heist away with the traveling block and swing it over against the fingerboard, lean it against the derrick. The guy up on the Fourble board takes off the traveling block. You do it all over again till you got all the pipe out, you see? Well, there wasn't anybody up on the Fourble board except a screech owl, and it flew away. So Billy turned his light off, and I come on inside. And just as I come up the steps, he let out a yell.
Yay!
What's the matter? What's the matter, Billy?
Hey, come here. Look here.
Well, what's it?
Look, Porky.
My... Where did you find that?
Now, listen, Porky, I give you my word. That was embedded in the core.
Why, it couldn't be.
I tell you it was. Look where I dug it out. Hey, you know what? That rock there comes from a mile underground. And it's been a mile underground for 1,000,000 years. And look at this.
And I did look. And what he was holding was a gold ring. And it was all carved and filigreed just like jewelry. And there wasn't any kidding about it. It was real. No, wait a minute. Hang on, I ain't done. I poked at the core of rock that looked like a kind of petrified salami or something. And then it was my turn to pretty near jump out of my pants. Because right alongside the place where Billy dug out the ring, there was a mud-covered, but very unmistakable finger. I picked it up, and it was cold, and it was heavy, and it was solid rock. At least it felt like solid rock. And I looked at Billy, and Billy looked at me. He started to rub the mud off this here stone finger. And as he rubbed it, it begun to disappear. No, he could still feel it, he said, but when the mud was gone, neither one of us could see it. And he dropped it to the derrick floor. It went clunk, and we couldn't find it any place. So you know what we done? Well, we took that bottle and we took and finished it, Billy and me. We finished it in one slug apiece, and it was a full pint of bathtub gin. It tasted just like so much well water to me. And then we sat down on the derrick floor and we looked at each other. We didn't say a word. My eyes got heavier and heavier. The last thing I remember was I heard some kind of noise that seemed to be coming up from down the Fourble board 80 feet above us. I shut my eyes a minute. I guess I went to sleep. And I had awful dreams. Black widow, spiders crawling all over me with gold rings on their legs. Things I could hear but I couldn't see up on the Fourble board. Billy Grunwald climbing up the ladder outside the derrick in the moonlight. Faces looking at me, and I couldn't figure out who they were. Then I was waked up by a horrible scream. A crash alongside me that shook the whole derrick. I opened my eyes to see Billy Grunwald lying on the floor 2 feet away with a broken neck. And his left hand... Well, he put the gold ring on the little finger of his left hand, and the way his arms were spread out, his left little finger and the ring were gone. Well, friend, I got out of there. I run down to where Billy had left his car, and I got in. I stepped on the starter. And I couldn't get it to go, and then I remembered after I'm pretty near run down the battery that Billy had taken a key. I wasn't going up there and go through a dead man's clothes to get it. So I sat there in the car and shivered all by myself till daylight. And then Ted and the crew came. Afterwards, a state cop, and everybody in the world was asking me questions.
Did you and Billy have a fight, Porky?
I told you we didn't, Ted.
But you had been drinking.
We only had that little pint, Ted.
Well, what was he doing up on the Fourble board?
Did you threaten him, and did he run up there to get away from you?
Listen, cop, don't be a chump. Billy Grunwald and I were good friends.
Then why'd you push him off the Fourble board?
I didn't, I tell you. I wasn't up there.
Oh, what did he go up there for?
I don't know. I was asleep.
How do you know he was up there?
I didn't say he was. You said so. Besides, how would he break his neck if he didn't fall from way up there?
Well, look, officer. I think it was just another accident. I mean, we haven't got anything on Porky, and personally, I don't believe he did it.
Well, it's mighty mysterious.
So it is. But we got work to do. Now, how about it? That cement's hard down there. I want to start drilling again, and I'm short-handed. Will you let Porky stay here till I run in my pipe again, and, well, then you can take him and ask him questions till you're blue in the face.
Well,
Okay. Let's get rolling. You got steam up, Happy?
I'm all set.
All right. Porky, you go up on the Fourble board.
What? Not me, Ted.
Oh, don't be such a boob. There's nobody up there to shove you overboard. And you can put a safety line around you if you want to. And besides, you're getting paid to do what you're told. I've lost too much time already. Come on, get going.
So, okay, I go up on the Fourble board. And you can bet I took a good gander around before I did anything else. No, I couldn't see a thing. So I signaled to the driller to let down the traveling block, and he did. Came sailing down from up above. I was just reaching for it to pick up the first Fourble drill pipe. Gave a big jerk, and the cable broke. It dropped and nearly pulled me off the Fourble board. And it landed right on top of Ted. And if you have any idea what a guy looks like after 2 tons of metal land on him from 80 feet up, yeah, you keep your ideas to yourself. That was enough. 2 accidents in a row. The whole crew quit. They wasn't going to wait for a third. And it was Ted's money that was paying off. There wasn't any more, and as far as I know, the abandoned derrick is still there. And that was 20 years ago. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. That traveling block was right in front of my face when it broke loose. It was hanging by steel cable, 3/4-inch steel cable. And I saw that cable break right before my eyes. Looked just like a piece of string when you snap it between your fingers. I could almost see the fingers. You know what? There was something up there on the Fourble board with me. And so a couple of days later I came back. I don't know if there's anything in the world as desolate, as dismal, as dead-looking as an abandoned oil well rig. There it stands like a skeleton off on a deserted side road and the bare yellow hills surrounding it, and it's the deadest thing you ever saw. I sat in my car for a long time looking at it. Everything was just the way we'd left it. I looked into the floor. The smashed traveling block was there alongside the rotary table. There was a little mutter of steam from the boiler. That was all. Then I heard a tinkle of something as it hit the ground alongside me. I looked around. There wasn't a soul in sight. But at my feet was the gold ring that Billy Grunwald and I had found in the core of rock that came from a mile underground and from 1,000,000 years ago in time. And I heard a little sound. The sound of a kid crying. And there wasn't any kid up there. And I heard it again, and it came from above my head, and I took out my revolver. I loaded it carefully. I started up the ladder to the Fourble board. wasn't anything up there, nothing I could see. There was a voice crying. The voice of a little kid. And then there was a movement behind the rack of drill pipes, and I saw the pipe move, and I yelled, "Come out of there, whoever you are! Come out or I'll start shooting!" And the stand-up pipe shivered, and I thought, what can it be that can handle that heavy pipe like jack straws? And then there was a crash. The whole stand-up pipe fell over, and I just got out of the way in time. And I was alone on the Fourble board with the thing. But I couldn't see it. I felt the platform tremble under my feet again as something moved toward me. I fired 2 or 3 shots. And nothing happened. I started backwards. I knew it was following me because I could hear it meowing like a cat. My feet tripped over something. I saw it was a big can of red lead that somebody had left up there. Without thinking, I picked it up and I threw it at the sound, and it splashed. And there it was. And I wish the face of a little girl, frightened, crying with hunger and terror. Hands like a human being, and a finger missing from the left hand. And the body. Well, I'll tell you about that. I told you how I'm scared of spiders. But I knew where it came from. It had come from the bowels of the earth, come riding up on the drill pipe as we yanked it out of the well. Come to an alien world, and was lost. It stood there dripping with red paint, blood red from head to foot like some horrible dream. And it put its hand on my arm. Its hand was stone. Living, moving stone. And it looked into my eyes and mewed like a lost kitten. "20 years ago, I discovered many things about it, what it used for food, that it was deaf, that it was invisible and couldn't see people when it was invisible, that if you sprayed it with mud or paint or grease paint, makeup, then it could see people. And believe me, I didn't want to see its body. I can see that in my nightmares. But its face, I can't help wanting to see that pathetic little girl face. I'm afraid maybe I've fallen. But it's very beautiful. And when it's well made up, it's... But making it up, rubbing grease paint on a stone face that looks at you and smiles, and it makes sounds like a lost kitten yet. I can disguise the body in long dresses. She can't hear very well, and when she's hungry, I have to stay out of her way. I found out what she likes to eat, remember? No, sit still. Sit still, do. Sit still or I'll have to shoot you. I want you to meet my wife. Or rather, my wife wants to meet you. Mike? Mike? There she is. Come on in, dear.
The title of tonight's Quiet Please story is The Thing on the Fourble Board. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper and featured Ernest Chappell. And Dan Sutter played Billy Grunwald. Pat O'Malley was Ted. And Cecil Roy was also a member of the cast. As usual, music for Quiet Please is played by Albert Berman. Sound by our good friend Albert April. And so, until next week at the same time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell. This program was heard in Canada through the facilities of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
That story never gets old. Truly a piece of art when you get right down to it. The script was written by Willis Cooper, who created everything you just heard. It infuses authentic details of oil rig workers with the elements of Hollow Earth lore. This story is truly a classic, and I make you this promise here and now that you will hear it every spooky season on Ron's Amazing Stories. This is our 10th year now, and I've held true to that promise every year. Sylvia, what are your thoughts on this classic?
That never fails to send cold shivers down my spine. That voice. Oh. Whoa, what a story. Oh, man.
Okay. You know, though, what my favorite part of the entire story is?
Tell me.
Pork chops. Oh, man, that's good.
You can almost taste that.
And that goes to what you were talking about before, the whole truly mundane at the beginning. Here's a guy who is the last man there. He's all alone, and he's cooking up some pork chops, waiting for the surveyor to come in and look at the core samples. I mean, yeah. And he's just sitting there waiting. And so they decide to cook some pork chops and have a little fun chat, and then maybe drink a little bourbon. We don't know exactly what that was out there, but and then pretty much all heck breaks loose.
Oh man, yeah. But yeah, that's what I love. It's just a couple of guys, and one guy shares his food. He's got plenty. He's
7
already had
pork chops.
some. Yeah, have some. It's lovely. Yeah, you can almost smell that browning meat in the pan and hear the sizzle.
If you listen carefully to the audio track on headphones, you can hear the sizzle of the meat.
Awesome. What a wonderful touch.
They really put some serious detail into this thing. Not only telling us the history and how oil rigs work, but doing it in such a manner that you're going, okay, why are you telling me this? What's going on?
That's what I really enjoyed it, because it's almost the same thing that I found in The Martian that we discussed several episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
The narrator explained what he needed to explain and didn't make me feel like a dork for not knowing it, and didn't make me feel overwhelmed with technical detail. Mm-hmm. But that detail was important to the story, and he presented it just the way he needed to. No more than he needed to, and he didn't leave you misunderstanding anything. He didn't leave you baffled.
All right, Sylvia, I got some technical specs for you.
Okay.
So when they were talking about the depths of mining, how deep that they would get, that's changed a little bit. I have the numbers of the actual deepest wells. Would you like to hear them?
Yeah.
All right. There's a project called Bertha Rogers number 1. It's in Oklahoma. It is 31,441 feet deep.
Yeesh.
There is another one called the BP Deepwater Horizon. It's off the Gulf of Mexico.
Sure.
It is 35,000 feet deep.
Oh. I'm going to show my ignorance here, and I'm not exactly sure how many feet are in a mile, but that's got to be more than 10 miles deep, isn't it?
Well, 5,000 miles, roughly 5,000 feet, is about a mile.
Oh, okay. I thought it was closer to 3. So not quite 10 miles, but 6 or 7?
Something like that. Is that not crazy or what?
What do they do down there?
I don't know. But it makes you wonder, if you're down that deep, what truly is down there? Huh?
Yeah.
And is it a creature that eats human flesh for fun? Who knows? So what was the moment of the movie that you felt the creepy come in? When was that moment for you?
When the thing started crying.
Oh, really? So towards the end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Other than that, I was just invested in the story, and oh yeah, horrible things are happening. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. That's invisible finger. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. But when it's when the thing started crying that I just lost my mind.
That's right at the end. For me, you mentioned where it was for me. For me, the creepy began with the finding of the ring and finger and the music in the background. If you listen carefully, up until that point, the music had been cordial. Nothing.
That's a good way to put it.
And all of a sudden, he finds this ring, and it changed. Right then, the music, the mood, everything changed. And then the finger, when he washes the mud off, that is when it got creepy for me.
That was unsettling to me. Not really creepy, but definitely unsettling. I have devoured horror stories for decades, so something like that, oh yeah, okay, that's part of a horror story. But I think it's part of the OTR thing too, to hear that crying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shivering just remembering it.
It is creepy, and believe it or not, that was actually done by a human being.
Yeah, believe it or not is a good way to preface that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about near the end when we finally do meet the creature and he throws the red paint on her. It's almost like love at first sight. The whole mood changes right then, and he more or less is just awed by this face from, well, I would call it from hell, literally.
Yeah.
And the description, the description of the creature was so well done that in my mind's eye, I could see that thing sitting there.
Yeah.
And
what was even creepier to me was, of course, the first reveal. Yes, that's horrifying. But then his decision, his conscious decision to paint it and make it visible for himself, for his own satisfaction and enjoyment and pleasure, and making it up like a human.
Yeah.
Just
and explaining that it was a painstaking process to do so. You think about this man sitting in front of this creature, painting a face on it.
With love.
With love.
With love and care and precision and compassion.
Totally crazy, or just some deep-rooted kindness, or what? I mean, we never really know.
I don't know.
They don't really explain it. But the one thing that they did do, and I don't know if everybody picked up on this, but his first reaction to it was the terror of the fact that it had this beautiful face, but the body of a spider. And the thing that they did very early on was he made the comment of what really scares him. Well, what was it? It was spiders.
Oh, yeah.
Did he lose his mind to the point where it was so much admiration for this creature that, or maybe the fear of the creature was so great that his only reaction to it could have been love, and he lost his ever-loving mind over it.
That could be. That overwhelming terror of seeing something that big, spidery that big, but with that beautiful face attached. That horrible juxtaposition, I think, made his mind crack. And all he was left with was what registered the most, and the fear just obliterated the fact that it had such a beautiful face, obliterated the fear that he felt because of the spider form.
Let's talk about the ending.
Do we have
to? Well, maybe my idea of the ending is different than yours, because to me the ending is a beginning.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. For some reason, he takes this creature home, sets up homemaking with the thing. He even calls her his wife, and is his life now going out and getting meals for this thing? Because obviously the person that is hearing this story, us, or the person unfortunate enough to be sitting in that chair, is duped into coming there to be a meal for his wife.
Yes.
It's obvious. And so is the ending really the beginning of what his life is now?
Oh, I think he's been doing this for a while.
Yeah. And what kind of person does that make him now? Is he just so Looney Tunes that it doesn't really matter? He doesn't really think about what he's doing? Or does he know exactly what he's doing and enjoys it it's all left up to our imagination as to what it is.
And that is the genius of this story.
So, Sylvia, what is your ending to this story?
Well, I've got a good enough imagination that I could picture the narrator talking to me. I don't see the narrator as talking to some faceless goober that just happened to wander in or be invited over for supper. I imagined the narrator talking to me, and that also freaked me out so much that I can't listen to it more than once a year, I tell you what. And I was very deeply affected by the ending because I for just a spare moment, I thought, oh, what if it was me sitting in that chair?
I have a different view.
Okay.
My idea is that this would lead to the next chapter, and that would be the capture and ultimate destruction of the beast.
Oh.
And I know that that's probably not going to be popular with the listeners because obviously you fell in love with Porky. He was a likable guy from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And the creature, the moaning and the cry, he described it as a lost kitten. That's what it felt like to him. For me, it was like, okay, this creature can't exist. This has got to stop.
Yeah.
Human lives are at stake. And so the follow-up story would be the thing that the movie would be about, the capturing and maybe even flaunting, putting it out for display of this amazing creature. There is life below our planet. Beneath our feet, there's life. And so I see the ending of the story at the beginning of that story.
That's cool. I never thought of that, but that is intriguing.
There was never a part 2 to this, sadly, and I don't think there ever could be.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think their goal here was the open-endedness of the end, for you to decide, was it morally correct for him to do that? Obviously not.
Right.
But in his mind, obviously it was, to keep his wife alive. I don't know.
What a choice.
Any final thoughts on this one, Sylvia?
Oh, that is one of the most deeply creepy stories I have ever experienced, either hearing or reading. It's a wonderful story, wonderful piece of art.
It is, and it is timeless. Yeah, we know that we've gone much deeper than they said in the story, but it is timeless. This story could have happened today, and that is the beauty of old-time radio. Sylvia, I want to thank you for being part of this. This was more fun than you know. This is probably one of my most favorite stories. Probably? No, there's no probably about it. This is one of my favorite stories from the golden age of radio.
And for good reason.
All right, well, I hope all of you out there enjoyed it. You may turn your lights on, and there's no reason to be quiet anymore. Well, that was episode number 512, and we conclude week 2 of the month of Spooky 2021. I want to thank Sylvia for taking some time out to listen to the thing on the Fourble board with me. That was pretty fun. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.